Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. How was your 4th of July? Hope it was great. Lots of fireworks and fun. Everybody's dogs hated it, including our dogs as well. But it was nice where we live that there's a neighborhood not too far away from where our property is. And we just got to watch them spend all their money. So we had a few fireworks and things like that left over from last year, and Stephanie was helping me light some bottle rockets and do some stuff. But after that, we just sat on our front porch, and I mean, you couldn't pay for a better show. It was amazing. We just watched our neighbors blow all of their cash, and now they're poor, and we had a nice show. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson, where every day is Independence Day. We celebrate American freedom every single day on the Wake Up America show, at least Mondays through Fridays. We do take weekends off. Okay, but freedom never sleeps, really, does it? The Wake Up America show is every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time, 2 hours on weekdays, and would be grateful to have your subscription if you enjoy the content this morning. For those of you who are the regulars, you already know what to do, right? Click that like button so that we can spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty to more people who might want to tune in this morning. They just don't even know we exist. So glad to have you here with us this morning, and I hope you had a great holiday today. Our friend Grant, Richard Bell, Buddy Mansour, Studio 314, Jared Pierce, Chris Morrill, the Pork Chop Times, many others joining us already nice and bright and early this morning. I wonder if Kermode Bear is over on Rumble. Let's take a look and see if he's there. Usually we get to see. Oh, yeah, of course, Kermode Bear, bright and early on Rumble. Nice to see you, of course. First one here. Always appreciate him. All right, let's talk about the news. He don't mind cocaine. The first son, Hunter Biden, joined his father and other members of the Biden family at the White House on Tuesday to take in the 4th of July fireworks after he had a nice weekend getaway to Camp David, during which a powdered substance found in the West Wing initially tested positive for cocaine. Really? Cocaine. They'd all seen Cocaine Bear and decided to find out what all the fuss was about. Good morning, John Rail. Good morning to Andy Opperman. Nice to see you all here today. We're all getting excited to have a great month. 4th of July. Boy, I'm glad. I love holidays that happen in the middle of the week like this because you get that day off and then the rest of the week is kind of like a short week. And we've got an exciting rest of our week as well because our buddy John Burke is going to be with us in studio on Friday. Isn't that exciting? Yeah, host of the All-American Savage show. He's going to be in studio for Family Friday, but that was just the time that we can work out. I know you're like, Austin, you had Gavin McInnes on Family Friday and you got John Burke. These people aren't your family. Okay, well, we'll just say that they're our extended family, okay? And sometimes you got to work with people's schedules. Get off my back.
No, God!
Okay?
No, God,
For the
please,
love of God.
no!
JGJ, nice to see you again. We appreciate you very much. Thanks for leaving something where my kids play, says Buddy Mansour. I can't see what your thing actually says there because YouTube has decided to put that stupid little button down there. Thanks for leaving Coke where my kids play. That's funny. Every day is Independence Day. That's right. God bless it. Bud Light continues its downward trajectory. Glass bottling plants have been forced to shut down. 600 employees left jobless amid the Bud Light controversy. So we'll check in with what used to be America's favorite beer, number 2 now, and continuing on downward. We're going to talk about that and a new commercial featuring Travis Kelce. Is it Kelce or is it Kelsey? That's how you know I don't watch the foosball. Oh my God, by the way, oh, there you go. Look at this. Austin, you left your fireworks on. Watch this. Okay, we're going to change our backgrounds. Bada bing. Oh no, wrong. Wait, hold on. Oh my goodness gracious. Now, wasn't I supposed to have a background that was not fireworks? Guess what, Austin? You forgot to change your video background back. I bet I can do it though on the fly now while we're live here. Let's see this. You guys want to see me play with my backgrounds a little bit? You probably don't, right? You're probably like, Austin, please just get on with the news. I want to hear what's going on in the world. Change your backgrounds later. Okay, I'll do that. Well, guess what? You're going to get fireworks at least until I can fix it during the commercial break. How does that sound? Is it Kelsey, John Rail? Thank you, Travis Kelsey. Okay, so we'll leave the fireworks on and we'll just pretend like it's still American Independence Day. as we continue. Or I can just go back to this scene and you don't have any idea. All right, at 7:35, this is a big story, especially for freedom-loving libertarians like myself and people like you. Eric Schmidt, the senator from Missouri, actually has been pushing for this for quite some time legislatively. I think Senator Rand Paul introduced a bill a few weeks ago to the effect of what a federal judge in Missouri has just done. This is big news. A federal judge in Missouri versus Biden granted a preliminary injunction prohibiting the FBI, DOJ, DHS, and other agencies from working with big tech to censor on social media. A big win for the First Amendment on Independence Day. And of course, Senator Eric Schmidt, the junior senator from Missouri, says that he's proud to have led this fight. He certainly did. He took a big part in this. And honestly, I'm really pleased with the job that Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri is doing so far. And I don't know how he voted on Senator Rand pills. There's red pills and there's Rand pills, and I got to say that I'm Rand pilled, based in Rand pilled. But I'm pretty sure the senior senator from Missouri, Josh Hawley, voted against the bill, which would have had the same effect. Yeah, I know. What can you say? I ran against him. There you go. Chris Morrill says, yeah, people keep forgetting where most of Bud Light is brewed. Good job effing over Missouri. Yeah, well, some things are absolutely worth it. And, it's not to say there aren't going to be casualties in the war against the woke, Chris. But unfortunately, those are the unfortunate side effects of having to stand up for what you believe in. If the founding fathers could pledge their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor, and many of them did lose their lives, their fortunes, but none of them lost their honor, thankfully. So that's just sometimes the game that you play. Moving on to the next topic, we'll also John Miltimore from the Foundation for Economic Education will be joining us at 7:30. At 8 o'clock today, Judge Andrew Napolitano will be joining us for his regular Wednesday spot to talk about the legacy of slavery and reparations. Specifically, I saw this story yesterday that made me laugh so hard. So the California Reparations Task Force, which has been pushing to get trillions of dollars in reparations money approved for qualifying Black residents, has now called for a new aspect of reparations. You guys are going to be excited about this. California Reparations Task Force calls for eliminating child support debt for Black residents. And also for free Newports and Hennessy on every street corner, flowing like wine. The California Reparations Task Force is asking the Democratic controlled state legislature to eliminate interest on past due child support, as well as any back child support debt for Black residents of the state. They claim that discriminatory laws have torn African American families apart, and that one of the effects of the harms caused by the one effect of that is that the harms caused by the disproportionate amount of African Americans who are burdened with child support debt. Listen, this isn't like a competition here in terms of child support. We're not all just trying to see who can have the most or who can have the least child support debt. Nobody was saying that this was a competition. Nobody thinks that there should be equality in child support debt, but there is one way to ensure that you have less child support debt, and that is to practice and maintain abstinence until marriage. Yes, just like I did.
How dare you?
I know. I'm funny. I'm feeling funny this morning. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear your thoughts today on the show and the topics. If you think there's anything that we missed that we need to cover on the show today, you can send us a text again at that number, 573-319-1586. Now at 8:35 today, I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to get him on the show. I had him booked, but it would be his first time on the show. And sometimes when you have new guests, you don't know if they're actually going to show up. I tried to book him on Twitter and things like that. He's very secretive about his identity. But we'll just say we call him Ultra Gay Biker Dad, which It's interesting that a gay man has a father, but it is entirely possible. But he's a homosexual man who says he's not gay or queer, says he's not here to be your daddy, I'm your dad. He calls himself a First Amendment and Second Amendment absolutist. He is a simp for bikes, guns, cigars, and patriots. Yeah. And another homosexual conservative. So gay biker dad wants to be on the show today. I think he wants to be on the show. So hopefully he will call. We won't be able to see his face, so we're gonna have to do a phone call. That is, if we can get it set. So he said he's gonna be on, but we don't know for sure if he's gonna get back to us in time, because sometimes people, it's so early, people just like forget in the Wake Up America show, especially when it's a new guest. You just don't know if they're actually gonna show up. So we'd love to hear from you on this one. John Rail says, not quite true, Austin. Also, not getting divorced thwarts child support payments. Yes, that's true. Rare Camellia says that everything is a trade-off, even the free market. Employees are at the whims of the bad decisions of their employers. Very true, Camellia. Matt Unruh. Very true, Matt Unruh. Good to see you. All right, let's hit the news. The big story today. No wonder they call it the White House. Hunter Biden appeared in the White House yesterday for the 4th of July celebrations after an evacuation occurred at the White House due to a powdery substance that had been found inside of the White House library. Really? If you think this is the first time that illegal drugs have been inside the White House, I have got a bridge to sell you in Iraq. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden were accompanied on the balcony portico yesterday by Hunter Biden and his son Beau Jr., although his illegitimate love child was nowhere to be found. Welcome to your house, the White House. We're just renting. The 80-year-old president told military families, it's your house, the White House, he says. We're just renting. That's actually pretty funny. Let's give Joe Biden. I will say one thing about our commander in chief is that sometimes he is funny, even if he is a doofus. Not as funny as Donald Trump was, but still pretty funny. The Bidens and others in attendance for the president and the first lady celebration, Independence Day celebration, had a front row seat to the fireworks spectacular over the National Mall. And if you've never been to the White House, or not the White House, but the Washington, D.C. fireworks for the 4th of July, they're pretty awesome. And there's lots of places that you can go that you can avoid the crowds and still be able to see and enjoy the fireworks show. They had a bunch of great bands. I remember living in Washington, D.C. and having a good time on the 4th of July. But I don't think I only lived in Washington, D.C. when we had Democrats in charge. So it's good for business if you're a conservative or a libertarian, but bad for the country. Isn't that sad that that's the reality for where we're at in politics, where if a Democrat is president of the United States, or if the Democratic Party is in charge of the government to a large extent, which they are and really have been since the early 1920s, we've had Republicans who have had some amount of power, but for the most part, if you include the federal bureaucracies and the parties if you include the not just federal bureaucracies but also the federal unions, the unions, those are always democratically controlled, then we really have had democratic control of the government largely since, again, the early 1900s, and maybe even, like, if you consider the ideology of statism or big government, pretty much almost forever. We had a minor little blip of freedom for little parts of history. But anyways, in terms of the drugs found inside of the White House, I thought it was quite interesting that this happened when the news had broken, and we talked about this on Monday. Did you see the pictures of Hunter Biden driving 176 miles an hour to the to Las Vegas? And at least according to the news reports, Hunter Biden drove 176 miles to Las Vegas while high on crack and going to meet hookers. I guess I don't know whether to say give him the sad trombone or give him the well, congratulations. I mean, it is kind of funny because when you're a libertarian and you think drugs should be legalized for consenting adults, you look at what Hunter Biden is doing, And the only angle that you can really take on people like Hunter Biden or like Joe Biden is just that they're hypocrites, right? Because we one of the big charges that would have been leveled against Hunter, but which has been dropped or at least reduced down, is that there's photographs of him carrying a gun while he's smoking crystal meth, or at least ostensibly high on crystal meth, and he's got a gun in his hands, which the rest of us in this country would absolutely be in federal prison for. However, of course, him being the president's son, the hypocrisy knows no bounds, and he gets the sweetheart plea deal from Merrick Garland. But in regards to the cocaine found inside the White House, I'm sure we all assume that it's Hunter Biden visiting the White House, bringing in cocaine, and then just leaving it in the White House. I mean, here's the thing. That's how you know that family has too much money, because cocaine is very expensive, very expensive. And you don't just leave cocaine lying around. I mean, anybody that I've ever known who does cocaine, like they guard their cocaine like it's gold. And I mean, it's very expensive. I mean, I don't know what the street value of it is now, but I knew a guy in New York who used to buy, I think he used to buy 8 balls for like $350. And with inflation, and that would last him a weekend. And then with inflation, I'm pretty sure it's got to be like $500 for that kind of stuff now. But that's nothing when you've got daddy's money, and when you've got laundered funds coming through Ukraine. They're going to shut me down on social media for saying that. That amount of cocaine has got to be nothing. But the white powdery substance initially caused the evacuation of the White House because, of course, they think it's anthrax or some kind of attack. Congratulations, Hunter Biden, for freaking everybody out. And now authorities are trying to determine how the substance got into the White House. But you and I know exactly what's going to happen, don't we? Yes, we do. We know what they're going to do with this. It's going to go down the memory hole. It's going to be the similar situation. You know, they've got cameras all over the White House. I mean, the White House is essentially a museum with a military base inside of it. So despite the fact that there are cameras, all that place is bristling with cameras. All of the cameras are going to do the same thing that happened to the cameras that were watching Jeffrey Epstein's cell. We all know. All right. When we get back from the commercials, I am going to talk to you about the latest in the Bud Light controversy. 600 people lose their jobs as Bud Light continues to tank and spiral out of control. Will it ever stop? We don't know. Turn off the lights. We'll be back with the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. It was 1946. A battle was fought, not overseas, but right here on American soil. The Battle of Athens. An intense struggle against election fraud and for the rights promised by our founding fathers. Driven by the Second Amendment, ordinary citizens stood tall and fought back. Help us expose this momentous battle of integrity and bravery. Your support can make a difference. Visit givesendgo.com/bleedamerican and pledge your support, because we believe in the power of truth, the strength of unity, and the spirit of we the people. Let us not forget, we bleed American.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Petersen stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
About that, Chief. Good morning. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Glad to have you here. If you're a regular of the Wake Up America Show, make sure you click that like button. Show your support for the channel. We appreciate you very much. If you're watching us on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Kick, Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku, much everywhere. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on this morning so that you can get more updates whenever we're live, which is every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time, the Wake Up America Show. Written, produced, directed, and acted by just me. It's not acting, though. It's real. This is me. Maybe like me times 10. Me on cocaine, if you will. Me on Hunter, a night with Hunter Biden, or a morning with Hunter Biden. I'm sure he does drugs all day long. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. We're grateful to have you here. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Bud Light been accused of desperate marketing after releasing a new ad with American football player Travis Kelce out of the 4th of July. This is following a sustained backlash to a partnership earlier this year with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney. This last Sunday, the beer brand released this 15-second spot that I just played for you, featuring several men, including Travis Kelce. He's a Kansas City Chiefs tight end, grunting as they sit down before they open up a can of Bud Light. Oh boy, yeah. What are they doing there? The ad, of course, is supposed to appeal primarily to male beer drinkers, and despite attracting only 1,700 views, I think, on YouTube as of 9:30 on Monday, the comments, of course, were overwhelmingly naked. Naked? What's on your mind, Austin? AP, what's wrong with you? Rare Camellia says Bud Light kind of overcompensated in their attempts to get their target base back. Some of the Twitter ads were so cringe. Absolutely. Cheeky Mare says, I love a nice tight end. Man, you girls just do like the butt. I mean, I'm not going to get on a tangent here, but what is it with girls and butts? Like, why are you so obsessed with butts, the male butts? It's like our nipples. They're completely useless for everything but pooping. I don't poop from my nipples, obviously. I don't want to hear it, okay? Stop it with the jokes. Welcome to the Wake Up America show, where we make lots of jokes. We talk about the news, we have a good time, and we celebrate American freedom every single day on the Wake Up America show. Glad to have you here. I love seeing all these great people over on Rumble. 4, 5, 6, 7. So if for those of you, and I'll get to the news here in just one quick second, and then we got John Miltimore coming up in a couple minutes. For those of you who were there in the very beginning of the Wake Up America show back in September, almost a year ago, coming up on 2 months now, on our 2 months away from our 1 year anniversary. I think our average viewership when we first started the show was like 20 people, 20, 30 people, maybe max and stuff. Now we're averaging 70, and a lot of times we'll hit 100 people average watching us just between those two platforms, so YouTube and Rumble. And of course, we're on a bunch of other platforms as well. I don't count Facebook because Facebook, just anything that I post on Facebook, they just memory hole it. Like, I'll post something on Twitter, it'll get like 3 or 4 million views, and it'll get like 100 people who see it on Facebook. So nothing that I post gets seen on Facebook, so I just don't count it. If you're watching us over on Facebook this morning, I'm doing this for you. I'm posting it over there for you because I know there's like maybe 4 or 5 or 6 people over there that like to watch it and stuff like that. But if you're saying to yourself, God, there's nobody who watches this show, you need to join us over on YouTube or on Rumble. If you like a free speech platform, go to Rumble. If you like the OG AP supporters and you want to join my cult, they're all over on YouTube. Just kidding, Cantina Crew. The cult of free thinkers. Kermode Bear, you are great people, because I said so. Good morning to One Patriot Listener and Nelson65 and all of our friends, Bellar, Bitchmobile, and Robbie Thurman over on Rumble. We appreciate you guys. If you're watching us on Rumble today, too, we love those audience numbers. Make sure that you click that like button on the show. So we appreciate that very much. All right, well, to put a cap on this bottle, the glass bottling company that was impacted by Bud Light's botched promotion with Dylan Mulvaney is going to close down 2 of its locations, laying off more than 600 employees as the beer brand, of course, is continuing to grapple with this staggering financial loss. The Ardagh Group, which is a global glass producer, announced they're closing their plants in North Carolina and Louisiana this month, putting roughly 645 employees out of a job. So there you go, Chris Merle. You don't have to worry about losing jobs here in Missouri just yet. Well, maybe we do. But nobody said that there were not going to be casualties in war, and it certainly is a war on the woke, and we continue to fight here on the Wake Up America show. We are winning this war, by the way. Coming up next, we're going to talk to John Miltimore. He's managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education about a big win for freedom here in the United States. A judge has ordered Biden officials to limit their contact with social media companies. They want Joe Biden to stop scrolling Twitter, and they want Hunter Biden to stop posting his crackhead photos on whatever social media network they keep ending up on. No, okay. All right. Well, we'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here. Make sure you click that like button if you're just tuning in. And if you haven't watched our content before, make sure you click subscribe on whichever channel you're watching us on this morning. Wake Up America show is 5 days a week, Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. We'd love to have you come back and join us more. We got a nice, big, burgeoning audience. The audience just keeps getting bigger and bigger as we come up on our 1-year anniversary, which we're super excited about. If you're a regular viewer of the show, then you know my next guest quite well. He's a weekly regular guest, Jon Miltimore. He's the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. Hey, Jon, thanks so much for coming on today.
Hey, AP, how's it going today?
Doing good, man. Glad to have you here. It's nice to have you on to talk about some good news for once. Wall Street Journal reports a judge has ordered Biden officials to limit contact with social media companies. A ruling has said that the Biden administration's policing of social media likely violated the First Amendment. Jon, this is big.
No, it's a huge story, and I don't think it was a coincidence that it came out on the 4th of July. Think of that. It was released. The opinion was released yesterday. It got a ton of attention on Twitter. It's a really big deal, and I've been writing about this for at least a year now. And if you go back, these agencies are usually citing the Department, of Homeland Security as they're authorized to do this under them. If you go back, when the agency was founded, there was nothing that authorized them to control speech, to monitor speech. Like I went through it. They're doing this without the constitutional authority to do it. So it's great to see a U.S. district judge came in and slapped them down. The question is, will the Biden administration appeal? I hope they do. We'll have to see. But they're doing this without authority. But the problem is, what do you do? It's almost, you have two willful parties here. Like this wasn't big tech knew what they were doing, and there is the whole if big tech wants to be colluding with the federal government to decide what they can censor and what should be censored and what shouldn't, can you really stop them from doing that? So that I would say this is chapter one in a much bigger story.
For sure. So, Jon, if you wouldn't mind, for our audience, give us a little bit of background here on why the judge had to make this determination. What was the Biden administration doing? What was this relationship with social media that a judge felt that they needed to step in?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you had here were two states, if I recall, it was Mississippi and Louisiana that sued, and you had all these federal agencies that were coordinating with everybody from Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. We all lived through the pandemic, right? We all knew if you said the wrong thing about masks, you could be booted off the platform. And the CDC is mentioned, all these other agencies are mentioned in the opinion, and all of this was under the guise of, stemming the flow of misinformation. But let's be clear, and the judge made this very clear in the ruling. Misinformation really wasn't the target. What the target was misinformation that went against the government's narrative. And that's why you had things like, if you mentioned stuff about vaccines, um, one thing that's important to point out, they weren't just doing this to things that were considered disinformation or misinformation. There's a new one called malinformation, and they were actually targeting malinformation too. And what malinformation means is information that's actually true, but it's problematic. And all of this, I should say, is released through the Twitter files. Like, this is how we know so much of this, right? We would never have most of this information if Elon Musk didn't decide to spend $44 billion on Twitter because he saw what was happening. We would not, this case, I don't think would be here because we would not know the full extent. That's why everyone was freaking out when Elon Musk bought Twitter. I think they saw what was happening. Somebody wrote, it might have been Paul Thacker in the Disinformation. He's got a great Substack. There was something in there recently where it was a conversation, an email chain between CIA officials saying, what are we going to do when people find out what we're doing? Okay, like they've been conscious for a long time. They've been doing all this without any kind of oversight. They've been getting away with it, but they're aware, like, eventually people are going to ask questions. What's our, how are we going to, address that? This should be, here's my concern. Americans should be more freaked out over this than they are. And it really bothers me that Americans aren't screaming over this and saying, hey, this is the stuff we should be protesting about. The problem is media is they're compliant because they're part of the game. They're working directly with the agencies. It gives them clout. With the government, gets to decide what's true and what's not true and what's misinformation. All of this is really concerning. And like I said, it's just starting. There's going to be more court battles. There's going to be more battles between media, and social media now. Like, you're right, you got Facebook launching its own app, like a Twitter-like app. It's going to be wild. But I do feel like at least now we have some platforms that are free speech friendly. And we can all complain a little bit, like, even, like some of the, I don't think cis is a slur, right? Like, I don't think we should ban people for saying that. Like, I'm not saying any platform is perfect for free speech. But, I think now we can challenge the government without just being kicked off social media platforms or having to fear that, at least most of them.
You're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show. Good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here. Click that like button if you're enjoying the content, and subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on so that you can join us 5 days a week here. We're glad to have you here. And you can text the show today, or if you have a question for my guest, at 573-319-1586. That's right. The text lines are open, and we'd love to hear from you on your thoughts on the news of the day at 573-319-1586. I'm speaking to Jon Miltimore. He is the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education, and we're talking about a big win for freedom here in this country. A judge has ordered Biden officials to limit contact with social media companies. This was a big win, came out on Independence Day. This is a broad preliminary injunction limiting the federal government from communicating with social media companies about online content. It was a 155-page ruling that barred White House officials and multiple federal agencies from contacting social media companies with the purpose of suppressing political views and other speech normally protected from government censorship. Now, just as an aside, kind of a funny little anecdote on this one, John, you probably didn't know this, but Senator Angus King of the state of Maine actually specifically requested for Twitter to censor my wife, Stephanie, because she was tweeting in support of his primary challenger, or of his Republican challenger, Eric Brakey. So there was actually, it was listed, my wife's Twitter handle was given to Twitter and said, please censor this, because she was listed as a social media troll, which, if you know anything about my wife, troll may apply to me, but she is certainly not a troll. She probably just tweeted something like, vote for Eric Brakey in Maine. But a sitting U.S. senator told social media companies to remove her from the platform. And the thing is that I can imagine that that's probably pretty common, that our elected officials and representatives are acting God, John, in a similar way to how John Adams acted as soon as the Constitution was signed by passing the Alien and Sedition Acts, right? Immediately going after their political opponents, but now they're targeting Midwestern tradwives like mine.
That's awesome. No, I knew King had mentioned a few people. Like I think, Matt Taibbi mentioned that in one of his pieces. I didn't see Stepp was one of them. But that's the thing. We all think like, oh, these people in Washington have high ideals and these things. No, they're mad that they're going after people. They're using power in these really petty ways. Like don't underestimate how petty these people are when they're coming after just regular people who are saying something on Twitter they don't like. That's frightening. And again, these are things we probably wouldn't have known without, like the Twitter purchase. It's wild. Now, the obvious question to me, I was telling this story to my wife, and I'm like, oh, I'm going on Austin's show tomorrow. Like, she's like, what are you talking about? And I was trying to explain. She's like, well, that's a big deal. She said, but what are they going to do when they break that? Like, what are they going to do when they do talk? Well, that's a good point. You know what? Judges don't have the power to really say, "Oh yeah, if you do talk, we're going to put you in jail for 6 months." And again, I wouldn't even say that's the appropriate penalty. But saying that you shouldn't be talking about First Amendment issues, like free speech issues, specifically, that's great. But don't believe for a minute they're not going to continue to try to do this. Even if it is appealed and upheld at the Supreme Court, even this goes further. We have the larger issue is we have a bureaucracy that's out of control, and they're completely unaccountable. We saw flashes of this. This really does feel new, like we're seeing it for the first time. But you saw this back in, I don't remember, was it 2010 with the IRS? Remember they were targeting conservative groups. The IRS was targeting Lois Lerner, and then her boss, whose name Costigan or whatever his name was, whose name I forget. They were having to testify about this. They got caught, right? They got caught. What happened to them? Nothing. They got full pensions. They got everything. They were doing this, no accountability. And I think things like that signal to these people that are in the bureaucracy. You know what? We can kind of do what we want here, and what even if we are caught, what really happens? I really can't think of anybody that's been seriously slapped down. If they were, it's probably because they were acting against, instead of they're acting for government, or excuse me, acting against government instead of for it. But I think that's, again, when you can do things and you're not held accountable, like even when you're caught, like we've seen it. It wasn't just the IRS. We've seen it with like guys like John Brennan, James Clapper, when they go and they testify before Congress. And they get caught lying. Now, they both have been caught in just bald-faced lies. Nothing's happened to them. And I think for me, this is when I awakened and said, oh, this isn't right. Like lying, Congress is the arm of the people. This is the one thing, like we're the people. You have to answer to the people. And you come on the Hill and you get caught lying about spying programs and nothing happens. For me, that was alarm bells going off. And I think we're seeing the same thing here now. What you have are bureaucrats that are now acting with very powerful corporate, entities, and they've been doing it for years, even without authorizations, and they've been doing it very quietly. Now they're caught. I don't think a whole lot will happen, but I don't expect them to stop doing this. They're going to try to find ways to work around.
For sure. And it's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, John. Now, the next step of this is you say you hope that the Biden administration is going to appeal. And is that because we want this to go to the Supreme Court?
I would love more attention on this issue. That's why. I think it's very important to get as much attention on this issue as we can. I want more, subpoenas for evidence and things. I want to crack this thing wide open. And I absolutely believe the Supreme Court would look at this and reach a similar conclusion. So yeah, I'd love to see this appealed.
It's wild to see how many wins we've been getting in the Supreme Court lately, hasn't it? I mean, it's like I'm almost tired of winning.
Well, here's the thing, that's the next thing. Like if you look at my Twitter, I don't know about yours, my Twitter feed's been just chock full of leftists raging on the Supreme Court and questioning its entire existence. They hate checks and balances. They just think, well, whatever we do, like we're the, we control Congress. We have the president. Whatever we do, that's okay. They don't even want to pretend let's be honest. You look at the student loan program. The idea of a president just unilaterally doing this, absolving hundreds of billions of dollars of loans without even getting Congress involved is clearly, that's nothing the Constitution ever would have authorized. The justices got that right. But that program, it's similar to this one. Loan forgiveness is still happening. They've already released a new, a new way to start forgiving loans. Is actually more aggressive than the last one. All this stuff, despite these Supreme Court wins, all this stuff, the momentum is there, and you're like, how do we fight these things? We got some victories, but like, to me, all I keep saying is that there's nothing really stopping that federal momentum.
So we got some good, Austin. We got some good news there. We just hit 100 simultaneous viewers watching us between Rumble and YouTube this morning. We'd love to see it. That's becoming a more common occurrence. I'm just going to get tired of winning myself over here on the Wake Up America show. But if you are one of those 100 people and you haven't clicked like on the stream yet, make sure you do that and subscribe to the channel so that you can come back and join us for great opinions and news, just like the content that you're hearing right now from John Miltimore. He's the managing editor for the Foundation of Economic Education. That's feed.org, and I read them every single day because it's a great place to go and get news from a free market, limited government perspective. They're always on target, on the ball, and they don't simp for any politician, even though my buddy Chris Morrill over on the live stream on YouTube is simping a little bit for the Trumpler, he says. He's like the biggest Donald Trump hater in the world, but even he has to give credit to the Trumpler, he says, for those Supreme Court justice picks. And John, for even all of his libertarian skeptics, I think anybody could say that, for these Supreme Court justices and for the Supreme Court now, we can say, God bless Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, some have been better than others. Let's face it, right? Gorsuch has been great. Barrett, I think, has done all right. Kavanaugh, I never believed much in. Like, I'm not going to give Trump any credit for Kavanaugh. I think we could have done way better than Kavanaugh.
That's true. Yes. Okay, but Justice Gorsuch is worth all three.
No, he's great. Like we all have our favorites, right? And yes. Gorsuch and Clarence Thomas are mine.
Yep, for sure. John Miltimore, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go today?
No, just wishing everyone a happy. I don't know what everyone else has out for a couple of days, so I'm just starting my week now. But it's a great way to start a 4th of July, post 4th of July week with, like you say, some big wins. I don't want to be a stick in the mud. These are big cases and they matter. And I'm glad we're getting some wins. But yeah, it does feel like the battle is just starting on some of these, and it gets tiring, right? Like the battle never seems to stop.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, that's the nature of things. It is the nature of government to expand and liberty to shrink. So it's up to our job to stay in the field and keep fighting and pushing back against the left. John, anything else? You want to plug your Substack real quick?
Yeah, well, like I said, you already plugged Fee. All of our content is at fee.org. And yeah, my Substack is The Take. I'm going to drop it in.
All right, drop it in the chat. We appreciate that.
Right now. So we're in there. So yeah, give me a follow on Substack.
Thanks very much, John Miltimore. We appreciate you getting up so early and being a good sport and joining us weekly for the Wake Up America show. You have a great day, okay?
Hey, thanks a lot, Austin. Take care.
Thanks very much. All right, it's time for me now to talk to you about the people who bring to you the Wake Up America show. No, this show ain't free. Freedom isn't free, is it? But here's a great way for you to support the show and get some great products to help you with pain management. I highly endorse and recommend my friend John Burke's Shell Shock CBD company because their products are effective. I was always a big skeptic of CBD products before I used John Burke's, because when you see something at a gas station, you think, oh, this doesn't work. I went to a Renaissance festival. Somebody gave me some Delta 8. I tried it. Didn't feel anything, right? Didn't get any kind of psychoactive effects. Didn't have any pain relief problems. And, I'm over 40 now, so I got some pain issues. We took that bottle of Roll-On home so that my mother-in-law could use it on her back, although it worked wonders for mine. Fallout gummies, many of these are either CBD free or are either THC free. meaning that you can get some delicious gummies and CBD for sleep aids, or you can get some that have the psychoactive effect that I know many of you libertarians are looking for. You can get a 10% discount on John Burke's Shell Shock CBD products by using my code AP for Liberty. And of course, that tells John, hey, people are watching the Wake Up America show and they're buying products, and he'll continue to sponsor us. We're going to see him on Friday. I'm looking forward to that. Still haven't tried the Delta Bar, I will admit. It scares me. Maybe we'll see if John will take a bite of it while we're here when he comes in on Friday. Delta 8, 40 milligrams per square. That's 500 milligrams. I can usually only tolerate like 5 milligrams. I know, Austin, such a baby. This stuff is strong though, man. This ain't your mama's THC. This is Delta 8, and it tastes delicious. Great products, good prices, and they work. And if they don't work for you and you don't like them, guess what? They've got a money-back guarantee. So try some shellshockcbd.com. Use that AP for Liberty code, get 10% off. And if at the end of the day you didn't like the product that you got, you're going to get your money back. I guarantee it. You can go to shellshockcbd.com, get yourself some delicious CBD and Delta 8, and then, and then you'll find yourself crimsoning and clovering, having a wonderful day. All right. That's that right there. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. The Wake Up America show is brought to you by our friends over at shellshockcbd.com. We got over 60 people watching us this morning over on Rumble. Hell yeah. And some new names and faces over there. American Freedom of Speech says, where is Dr. Jill with her prescription pad? Very funny. Who Flown Poo says that's why he wants the borders open, right? Get that cocaine. He says it could have just as easily been anthrax, yes. And he says, you're safe. Hunter is the smartest son I know. Very funny. 62 people watching on Rumble, 41 people over on YouTube. That's, if my math is correct, that adds up to over 100. Hell yes. I'm so excited. Because once you start to hit the over 100 people viewing you simultaneously, that's when you know that, like, you know, the advertisers really start to take notice, and like the numbers of views of the show start to get into the thousands, right? Because we started in the hundreds and the thousands. I'm super excited for what's happening. And for those of you who know, when I first started the show, I made phone calls to a lot of the supporters to say, hey, would you mind signing up for a monthly donation to the Wake Up America show? And I promised them, I said that I'm going to build a libertarian daily wire. And how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to make the Wake Up America show successful, and I'm going to try and create some other new shows just like this with some other hosts, which I'm still working on. But I also promised that I was going to start moving into long-form libertarian documentaries and long-form libertarian movies. Well, guess what? At the end of this month, we start production on our very first full-length libertarian documentary, and I am totally excited to premiere for you at some point in the near future the documentary called Bleed American, The Battle of Athens, which is going to be a full-length documentary centered around the story of an insurrection that happened in 1946 when World War II veterans who had been fighting overseas for the right to vote in free and fair elections realized that they had lost them here at home. So they got their guns, they laid siege to the local jail where the corrupt political machine had holed up and stolen the ballots, and dynamited it open, and finally found out that the veterans had actually won their election despite the attempts of the local Democratic political machines to steal that election. We're going to tell that story, and at the end of this month, we're going to shoot that documentary, at least the first phase of it, as I promised. I would begin that process for you. So all of those monthly contributions and our sponsors who have stepped in, even though I'm not the biggest podcast in the world, to make donations to the show, to buy products from apforlibertyshops.com, our merch website, making monthly sponsorships and contributions. We've had people give us sizable gifts like Edie Vogel and others to help us to buy cameras to get these things started and to help us to spread the message of freedom. And it really does mean a lot to me that you do support me and believe in my this mission and believe in me to be able to carry out this mission. So we are a small army, but we are a strong army, and sometimes those small armies are the ones that can accomplish the most. Call us Freedom Commandos, if you will. One of the best freedom fighters in the world is Judge Andrew Napolitano. He's going to be joining us here in 5 minutes to talk about the push for reparations and the history, the legacy of slavery here in the United States. I'm also going to ask him, what does he think about cocaine being found in the White House? He's also got a weekly column out this week that I think is really going to blow your mind. You're going to love it. Judge Andrew Napolitano, host of the Judging Freedom podcast, joining us in less than 5 minutes. We'll be right back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Here's Elon Musk.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America Show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? You can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Did you like my Alex Jones impersonation there during that commercial? Good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. I'm not Alex Jones. This is the Wake Up America show, and we're glad to have you here. Make sure you click like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content that you're watching this morning so far. We'd be glad to have you come back. The Wake Up America show, of course, every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. And we are delighted to be able to bring you excellent interviews like my next guest, who unfortunately we're going to lose for the next 2 weeks because he's going to go to Italy. Let's all give a good buongiorno to the good Judge Napolitano joining us now. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning, Austin. How are you, my dear friend? A belated Independence Day.
Yes, glad to have you here, Judge. It certainly was a lot of interesting news on Independence Day. One was the big story, which was that a judge had ordered the Biden administration to limit their contact with social media, which I think was a big win for freedom. But of course, the story that everybody's talking about this morning, Judge, is that maybe Hunter Biden was doing a little bit of light reading because they found some cocaine in the White House. What's your take on that?
I wonder what they found there in the Clinton years that we don't even know about. A lot of families, a lot of decent families have a ne'er-do-well child, and this is one that for the Republicans just keeps on giving. I mean, who knows? It's almost inconceivable that he would be wacky enough to do this, but could have been anybody, could have been a setup, could have been left over from the Clinton years. Who knows?
I mean, Judge, you and I know it could, because of the circles that you run in Washington, D.C. and in New York frequently, that the elites, the laws never apply, of the war on drugs never apply to the elites. It's only the poor people and the middle class who can barely afford to be able to fight back that drug laws apply to, really, right?
Well, you know my view. We shouldn't have drug laws. You own your own body. As an adult, you have the right to do with your own body what you want to do. It doesn't mean I personally or morally approve of it, like changing gender or ingesting a substance that substantially and materially alters your brain. But it's your body. You have the right to do it. The government, which can't deliver the mail or fill potholes or balance its budget or wage a war, has no business telling you what to do with your own body.
Yeah, no, can't disagree with that, Judge. And certainly you've been one of the biggest influences on my thinking about that one with your many great books that you have written, which I highly recommend. Those of you who are interested in still reading, you may not find them at the White House Library, but you'll certainly find them in mine, Judge. I wanted to talk to you, Judge, about the history of slavery and the push for reparations here in the United States. This is an issue that's is kind of a sticky issue for libertarians because of our Janus coin head, if you will, look at things like the Civil War and the legacy that slavery has left in the United States. There have been great harms and evils done under the banner of the Star Spangled Banner of the United States. Slavery occurred in the United States underneath the American flag, and it continued in a sense throughout up until the 1960s. Its legacy and stain tarnished the United States because of Jim Crow. And we saw recently that the Supreme Court overturned affirmative action. I imagine you probably agree with that. But now there's a push, Judge, and probably might be even a successful push in California and in New York to ask for reparations from the descendants of people who never owned slaves, many of whom were immigrants. I'm sure, Judge, your family, my family for certain, came over after, slavery had already been abolished. What is your take on the issue of reparations?
Well, all decisions made by the government based on race are unconstitutional. We know that from the values underlying the 14th Amendment and from recent interpretations of it. I'm not a fan of the recent Supreme Court opinion on affirmative action because it didn't go far enough. Justice Thomas's opinion, concurring opinion, and Justice Gorsuch's concurring opinion basically said what I just said. All decisions made by all governments based on race, or those who receive benefits from the government and in return for the benefits agree to abide by the restrictions imposed on the government, are unconstitutional. John Roberts' opinion is a typical John Roberts compromise. It permits decisions based on race if the decision maker can pass the strict scrutiny test, which basically means a compelling reason, whatever that is, served by the least restrictive alternative. It also excludes, and I haven't seen this anywhere in print, Austin, it also excludes the colleges and universities owned by, take a guess, the federal government. So West Point, Annapolis, the Air Force Academy, the Coast Guard Academy, the National War College, the Naval War College, all of these can discriminate on the basis of race. So if the 14th Amendment prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, why doesn't it apply to the federal government? If you take the Thomas Gorsuch view that race is removed from the government's armament of decision-making, then you can see that reparations is profoundly unconstitutional because it's a decision based exclusively on race. If you want to get into the rational basis, there is no rational basis for reparations. The African Americans living in America today who suffered because of cultural attitudes suffer because of cultural attitudes, not because of what the government did pre-1868.
Now, Judge, on the side of reparations, they argue that the U.S. government never made good on its promises for things like 40 acres and a mule. They were never able to acquire the kind of generational wealth that might have come from the planting of that seed during that time. Is there an argument that perhaps that wrong might need to go back and be righted?
Well, that wrong, 40 acres and a mule, A, was never a law enacted by Congress. B, was also based on race. C, was never afforded other ethnic, religious, cultural groups that came to the United States. This idea, like the piece you sent me this morning, if you're an African-American male and you owe back child support, the state is going to deny judges the ability to assess interest on what you owe. That is entirely based on race, as would 40 acres and a mule be based on race. So, you know, the left doesn't believe in the 14th Amendment, which they championed. They really want to be able to make decisions based on race so that the beneficiaries of those decisions will vote for them, period.
Would the correct decision, Judge, then have been at the time to divvy up the spoils of the defeated Confederacy and the aristocrats, the slaveholding aristocrats of the South, and give them equally to those who had been enslaved?
Well, you'd have to divvy up the spoils of those in the North who permitted the South to do what they did. The Constitution itself, the original Constitution, recognizes slavery in two places. This was ratified by all 13 colonies. It was ratified by every state in the Union that was a state at the time of the war between the states. The war between the states should never have been fought because the decision to join the Union is a voluntary decision, just as the decision to leave the Union can be a voluntary decision. It was no more fought to eradicate slavery than it was to put a man on the moon. The decision to implicate slavery was a military one made by Lincoln and his generals halfway through the war when they thought they were going to lose.
And of course, the implementation of the 13th Amendment was meant to legitimize the action of the Emancipation Declaration, correct?
Well, there were two 13 amendments. The one that Lincoln himself proposed would have made slavery legal everywhere in the United States. It never got out of Congress. The one that was ratified invalidated slavery and involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime when a person had been convicted following a due process, for all human beings. Correct. There were
Judge,
slaves in New Jersey prior to the Civil War. So I don't know how deep you want to dig into this,
well,
or not you. I don't know how deep these characters in California want to dig into this stuff. California was on the side of the Union during the Civil War. Why is California doing this? Because Gavin Newsom wants to replace Joe Biden when the Democrats decide he's too old and too sick to run for re-election.
Judge, one of our mutual friends, and I'm not sure if he's still alive. Yes, he is. Lou Lehrman, um, who you introduced me to during our time at Freedom Watch. He considers himself very much a libertarian. He actually disagrees with you on this. He wrote a book called Turning Point at Peoria. And his argument is that Lincoln did a genuine about face in regards to his view on slavery, and that it was at Peoria during the Civil War that Lincoln was convinced of the evils of slavery, or perhaps Lincoln wanted more than anything forced unionism, right, to keep the Union together, and saw slavery as something that was getting in the way of that, but that secretly he held anti-slavery beliefs. And you and I know that he also held anti-populist beliefs. The know-nothings at the time, you might compare them to the populists of today. Lincoln had very unkind things to say about them in his private writings, but he never said those things publicly. So Lou Lehrman argued that Lincoln privately held anti-slavery views, but that as a matter of wartime expediency, he was not able to express those anti-slavery views, or as a matter of politics, he couldn't be as anti-slavery as he truly was, because he knew that he had to maintain the Union, and in order to achieve his ultimate goal, he had to maintain unionism. And could you not? And I guess my question for you, Judge, on this one is, and this is rather meandering, I apologize, but isn't it a similar scenario such as the founding fathers were faced with in 1776 at the signing of the Declaration of Independence, that there were some people who truly wished to end slavery, the Thomas Jeffersons, the George Washingtons, and the John Adams and the Benjamin Franklins, but they knew that because of expediency, they could not win the War of Independence without the Edward Rutledges of the South, without the South Carolinas, and without those southern states, so that it was an issue that had to be put off for another time. Isn't it possible that Lincoln was fighting that same war of expediency?
I suppose anything's possible. Lincoln slaughtered 750,000 Americans. Lincoln is the first head of state in the history of the world to direct his military to slaughter civilians. Lincoln was one of the worst human beings that ever lived, much less the worst president that ever lived. To put 750,000 in perspective, that's more than all persons who died and all Americans who died in all other wars combined. I can't carry any water for Lincoln. I can't see any good in him. He arrested 3,000 newspaper reporters and editors in the North, not in the South, in the North, who criticized against them. He arrested Clement Vallandigham, a congressman from Ohio, who criticized him on the floor of the House of Representatives. He had no more respect for the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence than he was the man in the moon. Government schools, of which you and I are a product, and probably most people listening to us today, teach an idolization of Lincoln. It's a profound, dastardly wrong. I don't know how much more. I don't know how much clearer I can be.
You just don't get that kind of point of view anywhere else. I do like to push you on this subject, Judge, because I know it's something that you have studied very deeply, and one that I find fascinating as well. Chris Morrill over in the live stream says, as an occasional Southern apologist, I love it when he goes off on Abe. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to my good friend, Judge Andrew Napolitano, who joins us every Wednesday here on the Wake Up America show. He will be out in his ancestral lands of Italy for the next 2 weeks, so we will unfortunately not have him here for those 2 weeks. Whatever shall we do? Judge, I want to ask you, first of all, I'd like to talk about your weekly column at judgenap.com, which, since you haven't written any books recently, which you need to get on top of, please continue to write as many books as you can, Judge, because I always learn so much from them.
Well, I did publish a book. I did publish a book in February, just 5 months ago. It's an academic treatise called Freedom's Anchor, an introduction to natural law constitutionalism in American history. It's 500 pages. It has 2,000 footnotes. It traces the concept of natural rights from Aristotle up to the present day, but with an emphasis on looking at every U.S. Supreme Court opinion that expressly accepted or expressly rejected the idea of natural human rights and how we have lost them. I'm giving a lecture in Gardone, Italy, while I'm over there to a group of 250 academics, and the title of the lecture is Whatever Happened to Natural Rights?
So I guess I should say then that my problem is, Judge, is that your books aren't long enough. My favorite
well,
book
this
by
one's
you,
this one's a doorstop, 500 pages.
my favorite book by the Judge is Dred Scott's Revenge, which you can find out more about when his opinions on the Civil War and on the legacy of slavery in the United States. Judge, I'd like to talk to you about your weekly column, and I have a specific question to ask you. Is it better to be governed, and these are your words, which is worse, to be governed by one tyrant 3,000 miles away or 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away?
So this question was put to a Boston mob by an unknown, relatively unknown cleric by the name of Blyes, B-L-Y-E-S, with a famous uncle, Cotton Mather. He was a loyalist. It wasn't somebody that agitated against the troops or fought against the troops. He was warning about the tyranny of the majority and warning that we might actually have more freedom under an absent-minded absentee king than 3,000 tyrants whom we elect among us. Of course, he could never have imagined that the federal government would grow to 3 million tyrants. That's roughly the number of civilian employees that it has today. That's the teaser at the beginning of this article called Independence Day 2023, which is intended to be a reminder and an eye-opener that the Constitution is regularly trashed by the people we have elected to preserve it. And the trashing of the Constitution results in death, debt, and the loss of liberty. And all this is done, in a majoritarian way. I mean, which is worse, the tyranny of a madman or the tyranny of the majority? Well, the tyranny of the majority has an aura of legitimacy to it because we have elected the majority that have become our tyrants, and it doesn't matter who we elect, Republicans or Democrats. There's a few exceptions, libertarians on the right, some progressives on the left, but for the most part, it's just the same mentality: tax more, borrow more, regulate more, grow the government.
Judge, many of our friends in the libertarian community, I think Hans Hermann Hoppe has argued this at times, and others when he talks about democracy being the god that failed. They argue that monarchy might be superior to democracy, such as we have right now, because at least if a king sees we the people and sees this country as his property, people who own property are much more likely to take care of that property and to look out for its long-term value versus democracy where everyone is just a pig at the trough trying to take as much as they can from the public trough and feed on reparations and welfare and taxes as much as they can. So I guess my question to you, Judge, is would you prefer the divine right of kings, or do you prefer the consent of the governed?
Well, I happen to have Democracy, the God That Failed, right here on my desk. I'm reading it for the third time because it is almost the Bible for libertarians. Although I don't accept the idea of a monarchy, I accept the idea that Jefferson and Madison gave us, which is the right of the states to nullify and secede, and the right of counties and regions to nullify and secede from the states. No government will ever check itself, whether a king or a majority. It needs an outside force to do that. The outside force checking the federal government is the states. The outside force checking the states would be counties and cities within the states. I know this would make for chaos, but it would materially and substantially give the government pause before it did certain things. Example, if Chuck Schumer and Kevin McCarthy knew that by adding $4 trillion in debt to the federal government, that Montana and Wyoming would leave, they might think twice about doing it, because that's huge chunks of territory and income earners that would no longer be subject to the federal will.
Judge, the founding fathers of the United States had studied well democracies from history, and they created an experiment here with an American republic. They said, let us create 3 branches of government that are co-sovereign with their own powers that can then check and balance the powers of the other branches of these governments. And one of the things that they did with the legislature is they created a bicameral system in order to create another roadblock, if you will, to the passage of legislation, knowing that, the more difficult it was to pass legislation, the more likely it was to be accepted by a majority of the people. Now, this system is unique in the world, and certainly I think bicameralism has merit. But my question to you is, Judge, knowing what you say about the failures of the American constitutional system such as it is there some way to improve upon this system that the founders have created? If you could introduce a constitutional amendment.
Woodrow Wilson and his generation destroyed bicameralism by instituting the popular election of senators. So senators no longer represented the states as states. Madison and Jefferson gave us a 3-sided table. The concept of nationhood is represented by the president, on one side. The concept of the people is represented by the House of Representatives on the second side. The concept of the states was represented by the Senate on the third side. But Wilson and company destroyed that by the popular election of states. I mean, bicameralism used to work. It doesn't work anymore because the senators don't represent the states as states. They just represent the people in the states. It's just a glorified House of Representatives with a similar mentality and a nearly identical constituency. So the only thing that works is nullification and secession. Now, how do we know that nullification and secession was contemplated by the framers? Well, when the Alien and Sedition Acts became law in the Adams administration, that's the statute that criminalized criticism of the government. 2 people wrote anonymous broadsides against it and argued for nullification and hinted at secession. They didn't reveal who they were, but we know now that they were James Madison, who wrote the Constitution, and Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration. It is clear that, at least in the minds of the drafters of these 2 documents, that the concept of nullification and secession was contemplated. I think it's also clear in the minds of the other ratifiers and signatories as well.
Judge, should we resist the addition of Washington, D.C. to become the 51st state?
Probably, but that's probably going to happen. I don't know if this would be subject to a senatorial filibuster. If it will, then I don't think it will happen. It's just going to give the Democrats 2 more members of the Senate and 1 more member of the House of Representatives. I admit it is an oddity that it exists, but it's in the Constitution. So I don't know that this could happen without a constitutional amendment. The court, the same court that supposedly gave us no affirmative action, will have to call that one.
The northern part of California wishes to secede from the southern part of California and form its own political state of Jefferson. They would ostensibly vote Republican. Should we support that?
Probably, I would support that. I would also support California floating out into the Pacific. Gavin Newsom captaining the ship.
Judge, seeing what you're seeing of the Republican presidential primary at this time, I imagine you will comfortably vote Libertarian in the upcoming election.
I will. I'm tempted by RFK Jr. He says such wonderful things, but he's also a Democrat. Right now, none of this is meaningful. I mean, the last Republican I voted for president was Ronald Reagan in 1980. And since then, I have always voted for the Libertarian, even though last time I didn't even know who the hell the Libertarian was. Usually the Libertarian is a friend of mine, but the last time around, I didn't know who she was. I just knew that she stood for small government. A vote is a very personal thing. People say it's wasted. It's like, is a kiss wasted? I mean, it's just a very personal thing that you bestow on someone because you trust them, like them, and want them to be in your orbit.
No, the two kisses that you always plant firmly on my cheeks every time, Judge, that we meet are never wasted. Judge, you are the host of the Judging Freedom podcast. I imagine that we are going to get a few more episodes before you leave for Italy.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to look up who we have today. I know we have Alistair Crook from Rome, and I'm going to see him when I'm in Italy. We have Alistair Crook at 11. We have Phil Giraldi at 3:15. We have Tony Schaefer at 4:00, and Larry Johnson, who's just issued a broadside against his former colleagues in the CIA at 4:45. So we're getting 3 days of guests in. We're getting 5 days of guests in 3 days. Colonel McGregor tomorrow and Scott Ritter on Friday.
Certainly, Judging Freedom has been a tremendous success, and it's exciting to watch as you break the stranglehold on the mainstream media with your libertarian viewpoints. Judge Andrew Napolitano, a leading light in the fight for liberty here in the United States, in Italy, and all over the world. Thank you, Judge, for your time today. We will miss you. We'll see you when you get back from Italy. Safe travels.
Thank you. At the end of July. God bless you, Austin. All the best.
And you as well, sir. Best to you. Thank you very much. What do you think of Judge Andrew Napolitano? Send us a text. 573-319-1586 is the text line. Again, 573-319-1586 is the text line. It's time for me to talk to you about how I'm able to bring you such awesome interviews every single day. It takes like 6 hours a day of preparation to get the Wake Up America show ready to roll, right? I got a lot of reading to do. I have to book all the guests and all this kind of stuff. So what am I doing to make money otherwise, right? Well, I've got to get sponsors for the show. And Lear Capital has stepped in and said, you know what? We love the Wake Up America show, and we want access to your audience, Austin, because we think they're the type of people who will benefit the most from investing in gold and silver. And they're right, because my audience, the people who watch the Wake Up America show, know that you can't trust the Federal Reserve, you can't trust how much money they're going to print, and you can't trust the Congress and the president not to spend us into oblivion. This is why we like the courts. They don't spend money and they rule things unconstitutional. We love the Supreme Court. But we can't count on them when it comes to protecting our dollar. They should have overturned the income tax, the 16th Amendment. Am I right? Right? We're not going to do that anytime soon. So the best way to fight inflation is to visit our friends at Lear Capital at learaustin.com or call them today. 1-800-885-2175. That's right. I've got that number memorized now. 1-800-885-2175 is the phone number. Call them today. They've got a great deal going on right now where if you buy an ounce of gold, they're going to give you a free ounce of silver, which I honestly think is a pretty awesome deal. Especially because I like gold and silver. I know some people are like silver supremacists, or they're like gold bugs. They're just like gaga for gold. I like both. And if you want to acquire both, you can get, for every ounce of gold that you buy from Lear Capital, they're going to give you an ounce of silver as well. So great deal. Call them today. If you love gold, like Gold Member down here, 1-800-885-2175 or visit learaustin.com. If you're just curious, if you're gold curious, then visit the website and they'll send you a free gold and silver information packet. Now is the time to secure your financial future, make a solid investment. Gold always goes up. 1-800-885-2175 is the phone number, or visit learaustin.com. That's learaustin.com. Glad to have you here. Looks like our friend Big Mike D over on Rumble he wants to chime in. Hold on, let me switch our scene, turn off the music, and we're back. Big Mike D says the federal government should be entirely funded by the state legislatures. The federal government should have no direct interaction with the individual. Boy, I like that. You're in the right place, Big Mike D. Or should we say Big D, Mike? Nice to have you here. Pucho, Agarizer, Tolly Owens is here with us today, as well as Cheeky Mayor, John Rail, Dash, Elizabeth Press. Glad to have you here. Elizabeth Press says OMFG RFK. Yeah, a lot of libertarians kind of got turned on by Robert F. Kennedy there for a little while, but then when he came out with saying that he would sign an assault weapons ban, and what was the other thing that he said that all the libertarians were kind of like, I never fell under RFK's spell. I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of it. California Reparations Task Force calls for eliminating child support for Black residents. That's right. The California Reparations Task Force is asking the Democratic-controlled state legislature to eliminate interest on past due child support, as well as any back child support for Black residents of the state. In its final report issued last week, the group claimed that discriminatory laws have torn African American families apart, and that one effect of that is the harms caused by the disproportionate amount of African Americans who are burdened with child support debt. Yes. So the report that they submitted was apparently 1,100 pages. What, you can't just whittle it down to like 300 to 200 pages, or maybe whittle it down to like 5 pages? Like, just write it like this: like, all Black people in California get free money from the government. How about that? That's what you're advocating for. It also claimed that the 10% interest the state charges on back child support hinders their ability to finance further education, attend job training, find employment, and maintain housing because of the legal consequences of not paying such debt. So this is a gender question. This is a gender question, and it's a racial question, right? So what is it that Thomas Sowell had to say about Black fathers being absentee fathers? Thomas Sowell on absentee fathers and families. Let me pull that quote up. Facts and Fallacies with Thomas Sowell. Absent fathers blamed for Blacks' problems by Gregory Kane. Gregory Kane's talking about what it means to be a Black conservative, the importance of fathers. Economist Thomas Sowell points out that the poverty rate, let me pull it up. There we go. The poverty rate for African Americans fell by 40% from 1940 to 1960, just before the Great Society welfare programs. Prior to the Great Society, the rate of illegitimacy in the Black community was relatively low and families were intact. Today, the illegitimacy rate in the Black community is over 75%, which is devastating by virtually all accounts. Poverty is linked closely to the structure of the family. Government subsidies have created a permanent underclass of people by subsidizing fatherlessness and unemployment. So the question here is how much role should the state play in subsidizing fatherlessness? All right, it's a question of incentives. Now, do some fathers leave their family because they know that they're going to get taken care of by the government anyway? Sure, many of them do. Some of them are just deadbeats, right? The question there is, why? Why is this happening? And conservatives are going to point at the government being the culprit, and Democrats are going to point at the conservatives being the culprit, from which it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But if you think about it, but of course, if they were thinking about things, then they wouldn't be Democrats. I wonder what your thoughts on it are, though. Send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Brian Lewis says about RFK. He says, RFK is like a stripper. Once the light comes on, the party is over. It's over. It's true. We'll be back with more like that on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Petersen is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the Roaring Twenties brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored, because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
you have any real-world experience.
It's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway.
I need help.
You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. We're glad to have you here. Hope you're enjoying it so far. What do you think? Has the show been entertaining so far? I know we go to those big brain segments with Judge Andrew Napolitano. People really seem to enjoy those. If you do enjoy the content you're watching, make sure you click that like button. And if it's your first time here today and you're saying to yourself, this Austin Peterson guy's not bad. He's got some good interviews, some good content. Well, why don't you subscribe to that channel that you're watching us on this morning so you can come back and join us every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. The Wake Up America show brought to you by viewers and listeners just like you. All right, what have I got for you next? Johnny Bridezilla, who barred her conservative uncle from their wedding, still wanted $1,000 cash gift. I kid you not. An advice columnist didn't hold back when a hapless mother wrote in asking what to do about her brother's refusal to give her daughter $1,000 cash gift for her wedding after his niece banned him from the nuptials over his conservative views. Like, what? What the hell are you talking about? The mother, who signed herself Angry in Philadelphia, wrote to a popular advice columnist named Amy Dickinson, telling her how very politically progressive, her very progressive daughter, asked that her conservative-minded Uncle Dave not be invited to her wedding. Although she and Dave have always had a good relationship, I thought he is a conservative voter and has supported candidates we all abhor, the mother wrote. I wrote Dave a very nice note telling him that we would not be comfortable with him at the wedding and that he would not be invited. Dave did not respond and did not attend. The mother wrote that after the wedding, she sent Dave some photos from it to make him feel like he was not being totally left out, but he never responded, and he hasn't responded to anything since. She added that her other siblings were angry at her over the whole affair, but she was just getting started. Listen to this. The audacity. Only a Democrat would have the audacity. We don't want you to have anything to do with this, but give us your money. I mean, talk about reparations, right? Well, you had nothing to, you nor your ancestors had nothing to do with slavery, but we're still going to take your money. That shit is that's just theft right there. Another problem is that Dave has not sent my daughter and son-in-law a wedding gift, she wrote. What? Explaining that her brother has always given family members over $1,000 in cash as wedding gifts, and her daughter was upset that she'd not received anything from him. So sad. Dave's behavior is upsetting and embarrassing to me, she wrote. How can I get my brother to recognize and change his, emphasis mine, his behavior? Please don't tell me that I'm the one who started this by not inviting my brother to the wedding. After all, he's a grown man, and my daughter is young and just starting out. Amy, the advice columnist, didn't hold back with her advice. She says, let's recap. Your delicate daughter is too frightened to be near a conservative voter to allow her Uncle Dave to attend her wedding. She then asks you to do the dirty work for her, and of course you do. Amy, the advice columnist, then explained that sending Dave the photos from the wedding was only rubbing his nose in his banishment. But it's your second problem, which I believe will enter the Bridezilla Hall of Infamy. In short, brides who are too afraid of family members to invite them to a family wedding don't then get the pleasure of receiving their money. You seem almost as afraid of your daughter as she is afraid of your brother, but I hope you'll find a way to courageously tell her that the bank of Uncle Dave is closed, at least to your branch of the family. The advice columnist closed this by advising that Dave was the only person in the situation behaving appropriately and that the mother should do as he was doing, steering clear, which is exactly what you have asked him to do. God bless. Is that a good story or what? I mean, do you hear stories like that on your typical average show? I think not. The Wake Up America show brought to you by listeners and viewers just like you. I want to remind you that one of the best ways to support the Wake Up America show is to get some of our awesome merchandise. Over the weekend, we had some great sales from people who are looking to take advantage of the 4th of July sale over at apforlibertyshop.com, which unfortunately is not going on. I just haven't changed the banner on the site now, the Wake Up America show. I've been a little busy. I was having fun on the 4th of July, but I do need to change the banner on the front page of the website to reflect the fact that we no longer have the 4th of July sale going on. Oh, yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but you do have a 20% discount if you are a monthly subscriber to the Wake Up America show. So there's actually some products on the shop that, let's say, if you were to become a monthly subscriber today, you could become a monthly subscriber for $2.99 a month on YouTube right now, for example, or even like a $5 a month subscriber on Rumble. And since you get a 20% discount over at AP for Liberty Shop, the amount of money that you spend to get the membership, if you buy a product, will still be more than what you'll still save more money than you would have spent if you weren't a monthly subscriber. So I highly recommend that you become a monthly subscriber to the show to help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. But it's not like you're just doing charity work over here. You get the Wake Up America show brought to you. You get to guarantee a monthly income for us, because there's never a guarantee that Lear Capital or Shell Shock CBD or any of my sponsors will be here from one month to the next. Sometimes their advertising budget runs out, or they say, oh, maybe we didn't make enough from the audience here. So having a monthly subscriber list guarantees that the Wake Up America show will be here next month. So if you say to yourself, hey, I want to support the show, become a monthly subscriber. And you can do that either on YouTube or on Rumble, where you're watching us right now. But if you're savvy and you say to yourself, well, Austin, I know that YouTube and Rumble take a cut, and I want to support the show and make sure that all of my money goes to the show, then you're smart, you're savvy, and you can do that at wakeupamerica.show.com/support. So that's a great way to become a monthly subscriber. But if you say to yourself, you know what, Austin, I don't want to do anything like that, but I do really like the merchandise that you have at apforlibertyshop.com. Of course, we make a little profit off of that, and that helps us to support the show as well. And you get some cool merch. So check out apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com. Grant says, I'm a monthly subscriber, and it's awesome. That's true. Chris Morrill says that if you subscribe, AP has to come out and mow your lawn at least twice a month. It's in the fine print. Very funny. But I think, Grant has taken advantage of the AP for Liberty Shop discount. We got a bunch of new whiskey glasses in the shop over this last month. I highly recommend you check those out. So type in like whiskey or whiskey glass over at apforlibertyshop.com. Check them out right now. I'm going to go to a very brief little commercial break so I can set up my next topic, which is there it is. Where's the music? Next topic is 11 things to do when you're feeling lost in life. My advice, I'll give you my advice column. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that. I feel like an idiot. Sorry about that. Sorry. You know what? Sometimes I hit the wrong button. It happens. I don't have a producer over here. Wake Up America show is back for at least a few more minutes. Thanks so much for sticking around through that black screen of death. Dead air. No, not dead air, as Doug H. says, just an avant-garde ad. You're totally going to buy it. Good. Glad to have you here. It does get everybody's attention, though. Nice to have you here. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. If you're watching us over on Rumble or on YouTube or any of our other channels, make sure you click that like button before you leave. We appreciate you very much for watching the show, and we're grateful to have you here, but we need those likes so that our show can continue to grow. And more than anything, though, we really need those subscriptions. So we've got 18 likes, 38 people watching us over on Rumble. Do us a Flavor Flav and click that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'd be grateful for that. And same over on YouTube. That was AP's dark sense of humor, says Camellia. Exactly. Thanks for making excuses for me, guys. I'm sure we lost some viewers during that time period, but what can you do? It's the end of the show anyway. 11 things to do if you're feeling lost in life. What does it mean to feel lost? Well, you know, if you feel uncertainty about why you're doing something, right? If you feel like you're just going through the motions, maybe you're not looking forward to the future, or feeling overwhelmed by even the smallest of tasks. If you feel frustrated with others or yourself, or you cry without any known reason, or you feel like you're not able to make decisions, feeling uninterested in hobbies that you used to love, maybe you're withdrawing from your inner circle. Now you're asking yourself, Austin, why are you talking about this on a political news talk show if you're kind of new here? I think we'll talk about mental health topics just because I think we do have a crisis of suicide in this country. I know I'm not supposed to say that word on social media, but I'm going to say it anyway because we do have a crisis. And I think in order for us to address this, we have to address mental health problems that we're facing, so that people don't feel like they're alone in the dark and they don't have anybody to talk to. That's why I love having a therapist as a wife. My lovely wife, Stephanie Peterson, is a licensed clinical therapist who talks to hundreds of clients every month about their mental health issues. And I learn a lot from her. And it's made me a little bit more sensitive to this topic. And if you've ever had someone in your life who unalived themselves, then I think you know how important it can be for us to talk about these issues before things get out of hand. You know, before, when people start withdrawing from their inner circle, maybe it's time to start asking questions. Why? You know, ask yourself, why do you feel lost in life? Right? You know, losing a loved one, it can be an obvious answer, right? If you're married and you're deeply in love with your significant other and they pass away, either, you know, suddenly or expectedly, that can trigger that lost feeling, right? Setbacks like getting ill, falling behind on things that you, goals that you had set for yourself, right? Or maybe you got a life-threatening disease or lost a job or a client, if you will, or had to do like a major life change. Things like this can make you feel uncertain in life. A lot of people, what I hear from people that I know that struggle with this is that they feel like they don't have a support system, which is why I always try and make phone calls to friends that I haven't heard from in a while, or if I've seen them posting cryptic things on social media that would cause me to believe like they feel like they're alone or they're lonely. Phone calls can definitely go a big way to do it. Suppressed emotions can make you feel lost and disconnected. Societal pressure, right? One of the things that I have to resist every single day because I'm terminally online, but I kind of have to be for my career, is the social pressure to act or behave or think a certain thing or a certain way. So like, for example, I look up to Gavin McInnes, and I enjoy his content. I watch it every day. He's kind of, to me, he's a cool guy. He's who I think of as like a cool guy. But I can't be like Gavin McInnes. And he, you know, one of his pieces of advice last week was, you know, one was don't watch porn, which I don't do anyway. And then the other one was don't play video games. And, I kind of felt shamed. I felt seen there because, he's pressuring people not to do these things. And, if you're playing video games all day, every day, it can certainly become a problem. Just like if you watch porn all day, every day, right? Or take alcohol, right? A lot of too much of anything will be bad for you. But he specifically said, don't play video games. And I felt the pressure. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should give it up because Gavin McInnes said it. And then I said to myself, well, Austin, you have plenty of other hobbies that are exercise hobbies like karate, martial arts. And you go out, you spend time with friends. You're a social guy. You have parties. It's not like you live in your room sequestered away. When I play games, I play my games like in my living room where everybody can see me. Mochi Maru, nice to see you. Good to, arigato gozaimasu for the 200 yen. Mochi Maru Roman is our friend that we made from Japan. We met him on the bullet train. Sorry to go off on a quick little tangent there, but good to see you. I don't know what time it is there, so konbanwa? Konbanwa gozaimasu? I'm not quite sure. If it's the evening there in Japan, konbanwa. If it's really early, then it's ohayo gozaimasu. Ohayo gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu. But when it comes to societal pressure and things like that, you know what? I don't care what anybody says. You know what I mean? You tell me not to play video games. Mochi Maru will appreciate that. He's a game streamer. Somebody tells you not to enjoy your hobby. You know what? That's my hobby. I like to do it and I enjoy doing it. And I'm not going to cave to societal pressure. Even though Gavin McInnes has told, who I look up to, has told me, on my own show, don't play video games. Guess what? I'm going to do it anyway, right? How about this? Don't watch football, right? You're going to listen to me? No, you're not. You're going to go out and watch football and you're going to enjoy it. That's your hobby. You like it. Everybody has a form of entertainment. He's not going to tell you not to watch movies, right? It's the same thing, right? Except actually better in my mind. Nice to see you. Good to see you, Mochi Maru. I'm glad to have you here. Yes, talking about long-term gaming. But really, he doesn't think you should play video games at all. But one of the things that you can do if you're feeling lost or feeling any of these things, feeling disconnected from your peer group, not looking forward to the future, is you can get help from BetterHelp. And I endorse BetterHelp for your therapy needs because I know that there's women and some men like my wife over there. One of the things that BetterHelp that I really like is that you can actually choose someone based on their political views or preference. You can select that preference. So if you're concerned that someone is going to be a left liberal or something like that, if you want to talk to somebody, you can actually select that you'd like to speak to someone that has a more conservative view on things at betterhelp.com. Go to betterhelp.com/AP for Liberty. Use my code. You're going to get a discount on your first 3 months, I think, of therapy, or maybe it's your first 90 days. I forget off the top of my head. But visit betterhelp.com/AP for Liberty so that you can get plugged in and talk to somebody who actually cares. So signing up for volunteer work is another really good way for you to sort of get out of a funk. You're going to meet people, right? You're going to make friends, and you're going to feel good about what you've done once at the end of the day. So volunteering is another good way to help with your mental health. Take care of yourself, right? If you're overeating, you're stress eating, you're anxiety eating or something like that, just remember, you're not taking care of yourself by eating more calories. And I say this completely as a hypocrite, but take care of yourself. Do the exercise, right? Give it a try, just for a few months. Give yourself a goal, try and stick to it for a little while. I promise you're going to feel better if you stick to a little bit of diet and exercise just for a little while. Look at John Rail, our friend. He's lost over 100 pounds, right? Have you, are you eating healthily enough? Because I promise you, diet and exercise have an enormous impact on your mental health. You're going to feel much better without it, right? Just, check in every once in a while with yourself, right? Meditation, I know people laugh at it, but I laughed at it too before I started taking martial arts. But of course, and Mochi Maru knows this because I told him I went to Japan in part because I wanted to do some karate there because I love Japanese karate. But the meditation part of karate is actually my wife's favorite part of karate. She loves the meditation that we do at the beginning of class and the end of class. At the beginning of class, I invite people who do karate with me when I'm leading the class. I invite them to think about what it is that they're going to learn today, what they're going to focus on. And you're supposed to think about nothing, but it's really hard for most people when they first learn to meditate. And then put everything that happened that day aside, put the whole world away and get away from it, right? You get away from your phones and devices and just focus on what you're going to do in that class in that 1 hour, right? And then maybe meditate for a couple of minutes. Try it for a couple minutes a day. Just maybe 2 minutes of quiet, peaceful meditation. You don't have to have like boom, like things, symbols or whatever going on in the background, or like, flutes or stuff like that. Although I do like a little bit of light music, just for myself, to help me to like first focus on something and then to let it go and to kind of like get out of my head. But try for just 2 minutes a day. And I think you'll be surprised at how much it will kind of help to balance you and find a new center. I'm a big fan of it. It's kind of new agey, but who cares? Keep doing your hobbies, they say. Keep doing your hobbies or try new ones, right? So play some video games. Don't play it for 10 hours and not do anything else and neglect your responsibilities, but do something that you really enjoy, that you really like indulge yourself or try a new spin on an old hobby, things like that. Right? Don't give up on a habit. Maybe instead help it evolve, right? Instead of playing video games by yourself, maybe have some company over and socialize with somebody so that you have somebody to play games with, right? Not online, but in person. Right? Maybe go to church, right? Attend some inspirational events. You might have some toxic people in your life that you need to start to distance yourself from. And I know a lot of like criticism of therapists is that they'll tell you to leave your husband and get a divorce or eliminate these toxic people from your life because they're a narcissist and stuff like that. And there are definitely some danger of that in the therapy world. But sometimes some people you've got to extricate, right? You've got to have some time away. Right? You can love somebody, but know that you need to step back and spend a little bit less time with them. And maybe that's what it is. Try and create a healthy routine, things like that. Maybe even journaling. I know this is chick sounding stuff, but some of the solutions to our problems, guys, before we unalive ourselves are going to be things like writing down your thoughts in a journal. And even if it's deep and dark and scarier, put it out on paper, right? Sometimes it's kind of like cleansing. You're sort of getting the poison out of your system when you write it down or speak things out loud. But I highly recommend trying journaling, right? Try and find a growth opportunity, right? Can you find an activity that you can put yourself in, that you can grow in? Martial arts is what I recommend, but it's not for everybody, right? Find something that inspires you and put yourself into it. And I think probably the last thing on this list is probably the best thing, which is really hard to do for a lot of people, but practice gratitude, right? Try and say thank you to the people in your life or the situations in your life that bring you joy or laughter or happiness. When I go home later this afternoon and I see my dogs, I need to be grateful for them because they bring me so much joy, right? Sometimes I feel like I take them for granted, and I shouldn't do that. So practice gratitude. I never do that with my wife. I'm always grateful to her. I think she would attest to that as well, and she's here as well. So highly recommend and endorse our betterhelp.com/AP for Liberty. Get a discount on your first, I think it's month of therapy, first 30 days, but I could be wrong. All right, chickadee check yourself before you wreck yourself. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for sticking around, and I hope you had a happy Independence Day. See you tomorrow on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Petersen stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.